I was admitted to St. Kelvin Asylum on November 2nd, 2019. Voluntarily. That's what I kept telling myself anyway. The paperwork said voluntary psychiatric hold. But nothing about that place felt voluntary. The door locked behind me with the sound of finality. My phone was taken, along with my shoelaces, belt, and any sense of safety I still had left. I wasn't dangerous. I wasn't suicidal. Not in the traditional sense, but I hadn't slept in weeks. I'd stopped trusting my own eyes. I saw shadows where there were none. I heard whispers in white noise. I watched strangers smile at me with teeth that didn't belong. My therapist said I was having a psychotic episode brought on by stress, anxiety, and sleep deprivation. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was just tired. But St. Kelvin didn't help me rest. It made everything worse. The place was old, like Cold War-era institutional old. Peeling linoleum, cracked walls, doors that groaned when they moved. There was no art, no color, just gray, yellowed tile, and the faint scent of antiseptic layered over mildew. They put me in Ward 9. The nurse who brought me there said it used to be storage. It certainly looked like it. The hallway was too narrow, the lighting uneven, and the rooms were cells in all but name. There were 5 other patients in Ward 9. None of them spoke much. One man sat in the corner all day drawing eyes on scraps of paper. Another, an old woman, stared at the light fixture and muttered prayers in a language I didn't recognize. The only one who ever looked me in the eyes was Mara. She was maybe 25, thin as a matchstick, with greasy black hair and fingernails chewed down to the bone. She sat on her bed, knees drawn up, whispering something to the wall. The first time I passed her room, she turned to me and said, "It hides in the cracks." I paused. "What does?" She blinked, then smiled with too many teeth. "You'll see." The staff never stayed in Ward 9 for long. Nurses rotated in and out quickly, like they didn't want to linger. The psychiatrist assigned to us, Dr. Vayner, only visited once every few days, and even then only during daylight. At night, the ward changed. You could feel it. The walls seemed to breathe. The air grew thick, and the fluorescent lights would flicker and hum in rhythmic pulses, almost like Morse code. One night I awoke to tapping on my window, but my room was on the second floor, and there was no ledge outside, just brick wall. When I opened the curtain, I saw a smudged handprint on the inside of the glass. It wasn't mine. The next day I asked a nurse about it. She stared at me like I'd farted in church. "Don't joke about that." "About what?" "Windows touching it. That's not funny." She left without another word. That night, Mara came to my door and knocked once. I let her in. "You saw it, didn't you?" she asked. "What?" She pointed upward. "The gap between the tiles." I looked. There was a crack in the ceiling tile above my bed. It hadn't been there yesterday, or maybe I just hadn't noticed. "It watches from the walls," she said. "It lives between thoughts. When you forget where you are, it remembers." I didn't sleep that night. The dreams came next, or not dreams, more like loops. I'd wake up in my bed, get out, walk to the hallway, and everything was quiet. Too quiet, like the ward was vacuum sealed. Then I'd see Mira down the hall pointing at something behind me. I'd turn and wake up again. Same position, same breath, same dream. Each time the hallway would look more decayed. The walls would rot, the lights would die, the floor would flake apart. Until one night I turned around and didn't wake up. Behind me stood a door. It wasn't part of the ward. It was tall, wooden, arched, like something from a church, carved with symbols I didn't recognize. Mira was gone. I reached for the handle and something grabbed my wrist. A hand, long pale fingers, eyes in its knuckles. It hissed, "Not yet." I screamed and sat up in bed, drenched in sweat. The crack in the ceiling was wider. By day 20, I stopped trusting time. Clocks disappeared. Staff schedules changed without notice. Meals arrived at random intervals. One day the lights never came on, just humming darkness. We sat in our rooms and waited. No one screamed, no one cried. Only Mira whispered to her wall, On day 24, the man who drew eyes tore them all down and stuffed them into his mouth. He choked and died before the nurses could arrive. They wheeled him out like trash. Later that night, I found a new drawing under my bed. One large eye, looking straight at me. Beneath it, it wears our skin. I tried escaping. The hallway beyond the ward was always locked. One day I faked chest pain. When a nurse opened the door, I bolted. What I found wasn't a hospital. It was a loop. Corridors repeating endlessly, doors that led back into Ward 9 no matter where I turned, windows that showed only static. Mira met me in the hall. Told you. What is this place? A filter, she said, for minds that bend too far. I demanded to speak to Dr. Vayner. He came finally with bags under his eyes and fingers that trembled. He closed the door and said, they didn't build this place. It was found, built around. What? This level. Ward 9, it's not on any blueprint. We don't know where it came from. He leaned closer. People don't recover here. They dissolve. The ward finds something inside you and peels it out. Then why let people in? He smiled, tired and hopeless. Because sometimes the ward feeds on silence, but sometimes it gets hungry. On day 30, Mira disappeared. No one spoke of her. Her room was clean, bed made like she'd never existed. But I heard her voice that night from inside the ceiling crack. It's your turn. I tried scratching my arm just to feel real. My skin peeled like paper. Underneath was static, fuzz, snow. I wasn't a person anymore. I was memory being erased in real time. The final night came without warning. I woke up outside my room, naked, cold. Everyone else stood in the hallway facing the far wall, even the staff, all of them, still, breathless, eyes bleeding. Then the wall opened, not like a door, like a wound. Black mist poured out, and a voice, deep and many-throated, spoke. Feed me your name. I screamed mine. Nothing came out. I couldn't remember it. Now I sit in my room. They call me Patient 9. The crack in the ceiling watches. It whispers old names I almost recognize. I know this ward. I know its rhythm. I know the shape of the thing between the walls. I whisper to it now. And someday I'll go through the door too. And I'll be the one behind the glass asking the new arrivals, did you see it yet? I never knew my grandmother well. She lived in a house on Wren Hollow Road, a crumbling estate tucked deep in the forest, too far from anything, and according to my father, too far gone mentally. He called her a relic from another time, like her home and her stories didn't belong in the modern world. She died alone. The mailman found her after 3 weeks of silence. I inherited the house. My father didn't want it. He barely reacted to the will. Burn it down for all I care, he muttered. Just don't bring anything back. I didn't listen. I was 29, broke, and a little too romantic about old things. The idea of fixing up a family estate felt almost noble. I left the city in spring and drove 6 hours through pine forests and forgotten towns until the GPS gave up, and I followed hand-painted signs toward Wren Hollow. The house was waiting. It was enormous, but not in a grand way. Gothic, brittle, sagging with time. The shutters hung crooked like broken wings. Vines crawled up the brick like veins. But the windows were intact, and the roof was mostly there. Inside, the smell hit me. Dust, wood rot, and something beneath that, like rusted iron or old blood. The furniture was all original. Velvet armchairs faded into gray, cabinets full of china with yellowing glaze, clocks that had stopped ticking long ago. But what struck me most were the mirrors. There were dozens, every hallway, every bedroom, even the kitchen, and not normal ones. These were old, warped glass in ornate frames with strange inscriptions carved into the edges. One read, "The eye sees truth only when the mouth is closed." I assumed it was some weird antique philosophy. I should have left then. The first night I heard whispering, not from outside, from the house. It came from the walls, low and muffled. I pressed my ear to the wood and swore I heard my name. I didn't sleep. I stared at the mirror across from the bed, watching for movement. It stayed still. At first. In the morning, I found the front door wide open. I was sure I'd locked it. I went room to room, checking every window. Nothing broken, nothing taken, except the mirror in the hallway. It was gone. Only a clean square of wallpaper showed where it had hung. That night, it reappeared, propped against the wall by my bed. Now it reflected only me, but slightly delayed, a twitch behind my own movements. By the third day, I started hearing footsteps at night. Soft, bare feet, always one room over. When I got up to check, silence. The house felt tighter. The hall seemed narrower. The mirrors appeared larger. One mirror now stood in the cellar. I hadn't put it there, and the inscription on its frame was different. What you see is not alone. I found my grandmother's journals on the fifth day, buried in a drawer beneath old lace and mothballs. She wrote obsessively about them, reflections, shadows, doppelgangers. I caught it staring again. It blinked after I did. It whispered through the glass when I turned off the lights. It knows my thoughts before I do. She believed the house was a gateway, and the mirrors were not for vanity. They were locks. Every mirror must remain in its place, she wrote. If one is moved, it begins. I had already moved one. I had already let something out. That night, the bedroom mirror cracked, not shattered, just one long fracture across my reflection's face. I touched my own cheek. Nothing. The reflection didn't move. Then slowly it smiled. I didn't. I left the room and locked the door. The next morning, the mirror was on the ceiling. By day 10, I didn't recognize the house. Doors moved, staircases stretched. Some rooms appeared longer than they were. In the reflections, they watch me now. Not all of them, not all the time, but enough to notice, and they whispered, not in English, in a language that sounded like my voice, but wrong, warped, like a bad tape recording. I stopped eating. I stopped checking the mirrors, but they were always near. Even the windows started to reflect what they shouldn't. I tried to leave. The car wouldn't start. The phone was dead. The road out ended in trees that hadn't been there before. I went back to the house. It welcomed me with an open door and a mirror in the foyer that now showed me sleeping even as I stood. I stopped sleeping. When I tried, I'd wake up in different rooms. Once, I woke in the bathtub, dry but surrounded by mirrors. Another time, I woke in the attic with writing on the walls. One of us now. On day 15, I saw my father in the mirror. He stood behind me just for a second. I turned. No one there. Then the mirror showed my childhood bedroom. Then my ex, crying. Then me, again, rotting. They weren't showing reflections. They were showing possibilities, or maybe memories the house had swallowed. The journals ended abruptly. One final entry. I broke the mirror in the red room. I shouldn't have. Now it walks freely. It wears me at night. If anyone finds this, don't look in the mirrors. Don't speak your name aloud. And above all, the page was torn there. I started boarding them up. Every mirror, every surface, but they moved on their own. One night I caught my reflection moving to the edge of the mirror, trying to step out. I screamed. The reflection didn't. It just smiled, eyes black as oil. The house began showing its true face. Under the floorboards were more mirrors. In the fireplace. In the backs of cabinets. Under the mattress. Some showed me. Some didn't. One showed a woman I didn't know, banging on glass from the other side. Mouth moving. Silent. Then she saw me and froze. And in perfect sync, she mouthed, "Get out." On the 21st day, the walls bled mercury. I couldn't touch anything without seeing my reflection ripple. I spoke out loud just once. My name is... But I forgot it halfway through. I've stopped knowing who I am. Sometimes I see me outside the house walking away. Other times I see me still in bed, unmoving. The house feeds on identity. It copies, it keeps, it reflects until you are no longer sure which side of the mirror you belong to. Maybe my grandmother never died. Maybe she's still here looking out, waiting for someone to switch places with. Maybe that's what I did. Maybe I'm the reflection now. If someone finds this, if you're into the house now, do not look at your reflection. Cover every mirror. Do not answer your name if you hear it called from glass. And whatever you do, don't follow the version of you that walks away smiling, because that's not you anymore. It's what the house wants you to become.